This is the live broadcast. Today is the December 3rd, 9:30 a.m. Our guests will be joining us here momentarily. My name is Bart Berkey. I am the founder of Most People Don't. Today's podcast is called Most People Don't, But You Do. We are thrilled it's going to be going out to tons of people to be able to help share the story of an amazing gentleman. His name is Timm Chiusano. Let me read a little bit about Timm before he joins. I was trying to write down what is his title as an example, and it's really difficult because I can't peg down an exact title. Let me get him onto the stage, and then I will read a little bit more about him. And there he is, Timm.
Good morning, Bart.
Nice to officially meet you. I'm so glad you're here.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, my friend.
I was starting to brag about you. Are you ready to hear that, or you want to get off stage and then let me brag about you?
Go for it, man. Your show. I'm just here to help out.
No. And I started with the introduction. And again, welcome to the podcast. It's called Most People Don't, But You Do. And Timm, I have been a fan of yours for quite some time, following your messaging. And I want to read a little bit about your background and why, in particular, I wanted to have you on the show. It's going to go out to millions of people, not quite as many millions of likes that you've had on TikTok and other social media channels, but it's the top 2% podcast in the world. Until we really feature individuals that go above and beyond, that are making a difference, that are doing what most people don't. And that's what you are doing. I started to type in my name for the screen, Bart Berkey, most people don't. And then I'm ready to have banners scroll across him. And you know, the interesting thing is, I couldn't put down a title for you, Timm. I was going to put a swell dude, a humble gentleman. You were doing so much. 2024 LinkedIn top voice. You help people do their best work by being their best version. You're going to be an author with your book being released next year. You are a creator with Night. And then there's a whole lot of other corporate jobs that you have had before, including, and I know we're going to get you to talk here in a second, Spectrum Research, Vice President of Content, Vice President of Production and Creative Services. You spent some time with ESPN. You were also with ABC News. You were Director of Creative Marketing for GoTo. You've done some amazing things. So, Timm, how would you describe what you are doing right now? If you had to put a title, what would you put? Timm Chiusano, comma.
It's funny because I've been struggling with this a lot, even just like in responding to emails and when people say like, hey, give me a bio for this, and I've probably responded 50 different ways. I keep coming back to stay-at-home dad because that's what I'm doing now, or work from home dad is probably more appropriate. But to your point, it's a bit of a mouthful. It's kind of a weird explanation in regards to like who I am and what I'm doing right now. But if I had just a title, I would say work from home dad.
Yeah, love it. And that shows your family values. And that's exactly what you were doing. What I think is really unique about you, until I want to get into the questions, because I want our listeners to understand who you are. And let me just share my appreciation for you right now. There are not many social media influencers, because it's certainly what you are, whether you want to be that or not. You have 56.5 million likes on TikTok and over 1 million followers. What I liked about your messages is that they were thoughtful, they were creative, they were vulnerable, and I would like as many as I could possibly like. And I would share and want to say almost every single one of your messages because it resonated so well. Thank you for that. Thank you for being vulnerable and being humble. Title for this LinkedIn Live, and it's going out to Facebook and to YouTube channel, sharing his humble opinion. So thank you for that, Timm.
You're welcome, man. I don't know what I'm doing. I appreciate the fact that people have been so generous with their time and their attention, right? Like if we're able to capture anything from anybody at any point, as I caveat probably too frequently in my humble opinion, like if we can get people's trust and their time and their attention, like that's more valuable than, any direct sale or, anything else from a marketing perspective we might be able to gain. So thank you you're part of what made all this happen.
Good. Quite welcome. Quite welcome. There you are again, being humble. Tim, can you tell us a little bit about, and this is a unique way, it's a conversation. Can you tell us about growing up and perhaps what were some of the leading influencers that caused you to be who you are?
Sure. I mean, it starts with my parents, which is probably a very obvious place to start. But my mom, and this is something that I've been reflecting on a lot recently, because it's part of what, to what you brought up earlier, part of what I'm writing in a book for next year, and kind of like a critical point overall in regards to how I see the day to day. I was probably 5 years old, if I got the story right, 5 years old in Central Park, 1982. I'm playing on a rock that felt like it was my own because I wasn't in school yet, for a multitude of reasons. And like a bunch of kids came out to play in Central Park as well from a local school. And they all started playing on this rock as well. And I remember being like, I was only a child and kind of like, not socially awkward, but just like I was totally fine to just play by myself. And I remember being a bit upset about the fact that all these other kids are playing on the rock too, and kind of disrupting my little, truck rampage or whatever it was I was doing on the rock. And my mom said, you got two choices. You can have a good time or you can have a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about as straightforward as you could get. So as far as overall influences, going back to the early years, my mom's broader philosophies that included tons of gems along those lines. The fact that she was somebody who really flourished as an artist kind of later in her career, so to speak. She was an airline flight attendant, turned into an artist, was always an artist, but just like really started to do it with, earnest kind of, in the later stages, as most might say, if you define that as like 30s, 40s. And my dad was a kind of corporate. He wasn't kind of corporate. He was very corporate. He had an extraordinarily successful career in the radio industry. Worked his way up from being, a salesperson to a general manager to vice president at Infinity Radio towards the end of his career in CBS Radio. And that balance of artist and corporate father figure, and my dad, both of them. My mom didn't graduate from college either. I don't have a college degree. Something my parents didn't know until 6 months ago at this point. That's a whole nother story.
But, is that what you said?
My parents didn't know that I didn't get a degree until like 6 months ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Literally kept up for that for like 20 plus years. My dad has a degree, but he would say there wasn't the best school ever and he wasn't the best student ever. So kind of made the perfect combination, right? The guy who gets into corporate America, probably, by most standards, probably exceeded expectations relative to what people might think, if your teachers are going to kind of judge who's going to be successful and like those types of old school markers, so to speak. Arguably, exceeded all expectations and had a amazing career in the corporate space, and, mother who is an artist and had wisdom by the bag full that went along the lines of, you have two choices in life. You can have a good time or a bad time. And the fact that they both went through so much as well. My dad was a stage 4 melanoma survivor. This was 1999. He was inoperable, was one of 85 people to take an experimental chemotherapy that resulted in one survivor, and he was the one survivor. Wow. He was 20 years old, came back and saw that. So like that had a big impact. And, my mom's been a recovering addict since I was 16 years old, and I'm super proud of her for 30 plus years now, of being able to say that and to be an amazing symbol of what's possible when you can, confront what you need to confront, and deal with it the right way. And, going through all of that, and she had then cancer like 7 or 8 times herself. So just my parents alone, yes. Massive impression, and then, throughout all of that, I just tried to be the kid that got along with as many other kids as best as possible.
Tim, I love the balance between corporate and creatives, and that's you. You are
Yeah.
the, and people can tell from your videos and your publications, you're wearing a business suit, but you're wearing sneakers with it. You roll up your sleeves, and yes, you're tabbing. Um, so there's this corporate end of you, of course, but then this creative part certainly is coming through. I'm curious, when your mother referenced you can either have a good time or you can choose not to have a good time. Do you remember what you decided to do being on that rock and stuff apart?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't remember what I decided to do in that moment, but
Mhm.
I remember that that would stick in my head for obviously until this day. And, whether that was being in middle school and dealing with, either not getting the best of grades and how I was going to, wrap my head around that, or any kind of like, sports hurdles that I came across as a kid, or especially over the past, probably mostly between like 2017 and 2000 and 2020, when I was at a, mentally at a bit of a low point relative to, kind of career and corporate perspective. And having that be one of the anchor pieces to make me think about how do I really want to show up?
Yeah.
Like, how do I want to either cede control of these things or take control of these things?
Right. And you realize that it's up to you. You could choose to play with kids or not to play with kids. You could choose to stay on the rock or get off the rock.
That,
You choose to be happy or not be happy.
yep.
And I'm funny that you say that just because this was about 2 years ago. And Tim, my background, I was with Ritz Carlton for 16 years, leading a global sales team, wrote a book called Most People Don't about 10 years ago. Pandemic hit and my team was losing their jobs. And my job was, I knew was going to be going away. And I had to decide what I wanted to do. Right before the pandemic, I had a massive heart attack. And that was one sign that maybe I need to do a little something different. Months later, pandemic hit. And I said, like, you know what? I think I want to be able to help more people. As I'm seeking things, I was helping Ritz Carlton people and I was helping Ritz Carlton customers. But the world is big, my friend.
Mhm.
And just like you, why can't we try to help more people? So now going all over the country and sharing ideas about doing what most people don't. Having people on like you to be able to spread the word of positivity. So I really appreciate your perspective, but I wanted to tell you about an event we had a couple of years ago called Choose Happy. And it was right before the holiday season. It was like December 2nd, December 3rd. And it was designed to be able to help people make a decision. This is what I do to choose happy. This is what Tim does to choose happy. My one friend, Kelly Bishop, she would talk about picking positive. She had to make a decision. She would choose to walk on the sunny side of the street and she would pick positive. So I love that philosophy that it's up to us. And it's not always easy, but it is up to us. Can you go back to talking about a low point, if you don't mind, not to bring up bad memories?
Mhm.
Obviously, you excelled through it. Right now, there's a lot of low points for a lot of different people. There's massive corporate layoffs. There's uncertainty in the economy. There's political unrest. There's a lot of silly things that are going on right now. Can you share how you were able to get through the low point that you said from a corporate lens or whatever you were going through?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are a couple different things within that. One, and you hit on this a little bit, but it's the broader understanding of what the full set of challenges are on the planet in any given minute. And the topic of privilege comes up, depends on the circle in which you're having a conversation, but especially when you're putting your life out there, you can get you can have things that are looked at differently where they're like, oh, that's a privileged perspective to have for whatever different reason. So I try to keep that in mind, that it doesn't matter whether or not I'm talking about having witnessed my dad survive stage 4, losing my friend who would have turned 47 just 2 days ago, losing him 2 years ago to cancer, like things along those lines. Those are what they are. But in any given moment, and for anybody in a broader challenge perspective, it can be either too much or it can be a good grounding thought to have about what's happening across the entire planet right this second, right? 8 billion of us out there existing right now. And there are some ungodly, horrific things that are happening in all corners of every country across the planet right now. And so that was one. So one thing I kept coming back to, is, and this is not for everybody, but this is what helped me. I studied history during the time when I was studying, but didn't actually get the degree. And, studying the modernization of Europe and just how crazy all of the series of events were that kind of led up to what, the modern world looks like right now. And having thoughts like, I don't have to go fight in a war today, like an actual war today. So like I should be okay to go to an air-conditioned office on the 40th floor of a midtown building and do what I need to do. It was part of the reason why I started to go for walks really early in the morning to clear my mind, other than just getting some exercise. It was always super grounding. And again, this is not for everybody, but I'm starting to get more comfortable being even more direct with my answers on these topics. I would go out for a walk and I would think about, whether it was dealing with a situation with anybody at work at the time, or, any challenges where I felt like complete and total imbalance at home. And this is just being honest. Like I'd walk past, and as in New York City, you're never really going to see somebody that's going through a garbage can. They could be looking for food. They could be looking for cans. They could be looking for God knows what. And so I'd see that at like 5:07 in the morning and be like, I don't have to do that today. I don't have to do that today. So whatever I got to go do is going to be okay. So that was one. That was the like just kind of table set of in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to be okay. And then the second piece was the realization that it really is up to me. This is a bit of a deep cut in regards to references, but it's the true story. There's a band called Interpol, and they're a New York City band. They've been around for like 20-ish years now. Big influence on me, especially in my mid-20s, as a New York City-ish kid, and just loved everything and still love that band. They have a song, and it's a bit of a darker song, and there's a set of lyrics that talks about being like stuck in a hole, and the realization of like, well, what if I never break down here, right? And I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to careers, you get into this space where you think, well, this is just going to break me, or like something's and you think that there's going to be some sort of outside influence that creates some sort of like a catalyst or some sort of watershed moment. And when I heard that lyric of like, well, what if I never break? It's like, oh, wait a minute. Well, what if I just get trapped? What if I just assume that things are so difficult that something's going to happen and that's going to create the change? I have a breakdown. I have a full burnout, like whatever it is. Well, what if that doesn't happen? That's almost worse, right? Like being on the brink of burnout or being on the brink of like a full breakdown and it doesn't happen and you're just kind of stuck there. At least if the thing happens, then you have some sort of watershed event. Yeah. So this realization of like, if I don't take control of this, and again, I got this from a song lyric from a band that, has had mild popularity, but like, I don't think a lot of people know the band Interpol super, super well. I do highly recommend checking out their music if you like rock and roll. But that combination of global events and understanding how fortunate and how small I am all in one breath. And then the understanding too of like, again, going to that almost bottom rung of, I don't want to be in that position. And you hear so many people that are like, that will have the same conversations over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, well, I got to do something about this. So either figure this out on a day in and day out basis. And I, continue to do what I would call fight the good fight, or I let it control me.
Yeah. So a couple of things that you mentioned. By getting out of your own mind, move a muscle, move a thought, getting outside. It's not necessarily nature, but you're outside. And then being able to get out of your own head by observing other people. And it reminds me, I was in New York not that long ago, and certainly next time I need to buy you a cup of coffee. But I remember a homeless gentleman that was right by the subway station, the other side, and he said, I might as well be invisible. Yeah, I might as well be invisible. And I just got some bad news that I didn't get a speaking gig that I was looking for. And I'm heading down to the subway. And I was all sad and upset. And then I saw this guy with a sign that said, I might as well be invisible. I'm like, I can do something about that. And I went up right, I introduced myself. And you might laugh at this. I traveled with gratitude stones. And I had an extra dollar, literally a dollar, gave a dollar, and I gave him a gratitude stone. And it was just my way of saying, look, with gratitude stones in my pocket, it's a reminder that things are good, that the earth is here, that we're one among 8 billion. But right now we are here and we can handle things. And I gave it to him and I told him what it meant. And he grabbed it and he put it on his heart and he said, thank you. Conversation just like you and I are having. So this wasn't a drunk person. It was someone that was on drugs. It was a normal conversation just like this, Tim. Someone that was down in his luck. And he said, my name is Chew. What is yours? My name is Bart. Bart, thank you for this stone. It's going to help me. And so that aspect, and our listeners always, I believe, are learning from this. So if ever you're down, volunteer, get outside, look at other people, and allow nature and being outside to kind of help ground us. So that was one takeaway. And then the second thing I thought was very interesting, Tim, with what you said is that what if you don't break? What if there is not a release? What if you feel stuck? And what's so very, very cool is that you responsibly fired yourself. Responsibly fired yourself. Do you believe, Tim, that that is related to the story that you were just sharing with us, that you took control? So you were not waiting for something to happen. You were successful. You're growing. You're crushing. You're managing 240 people. And you decided to fire yourself. Can you share your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to figure out what the right way was to handle all of this, right? I'd never expected in my, especially getting into my 40s, that there'd be something that would happen that would give me an opportunity to do more than just a job at a company. And that was a pretty wild revelation. So I knew that, yes, to your point, if I didn't take control over it, I would just potentially get stuck in this like weird in-between zone of potentially not being all that great at either, because I was trying to just do all of the things and spin all of the plates. And I had people at the office too that would come in and close the door and be like, dude, don't let this pass. Like, don't just spin all of the plates all the time and think that things might change or have, a different set of expectations. And, my wife as well was one to say, when is it going to be time? Because if you say it's almost time, then it's always almost going to be time. So when is it going to be time? And I was very emotionally attached to that place. Like the people that I worked with, I mean, a lot of those people I went through, I feel like I truly grew up with, even though it was 35 to 47, like I feel like I truly grew up with those people. We went through all kinds of ups and downs. I'm super proud of the work that we did because we had a very specific focus on small businesses and giving them the right creative messaging so that they could take advantage of the opportunities of Spectrum's local media sales. Mm-hmm. And that felt like a special place to be in. And so, yeah, responsibly firing myself, knowing the broader potential ramifications based off of, what they may or may not do with the backfill, how do you take that group of people and set them up to be truly successful? I'd like to think that I was always managing to a place of how do I make myself irrelevant, right? I think if as a manager, it can be like, I would like to get to a place where my job is no longer needed, then you're doing an amazing job. And so that was always a goal of mine to like try to do that as much as possible. So yeah, I made a lot of mistakes during that phase of responsibly firing myself that I'm now trying to make up for now on the other side. But Yeah, that was having to just kind of grab the situation and say, this is what needs to happen. Let me focus on it this way. I'm not going to get it entirely right, but that's kind of the nature of doing something brand new. For better or worse, I've had a lot of staff impact conversations, so to speak, over the years. But when you're doing it literally to yourself and like going through all of those cadence and communication plans and budgeting and all that kind of good stuff, it's a different ball of wax. But yeah, that was me being like, all right, I'm either going to do this and I'm going to see what happens and try to truly help it scale, or I'm going to be stuck somewhere in between, or just kind of take the safe route, which is let me potentially just walk away from anything social media wise and just be like, it was a lot easier when I just had one job, and I'm not super old, but at the same time too, like I'm closer to retirement than I am to my first day of my career. So, why not just, double down on taking advantage of stock plans and that kind of stuff and peace out. But this is the path that I chose, and we're still going to see what the end results are.
Yeah, and so glad that you did. So glad that you did. Was there one defining moment, Tim? Was it what your wife said, what Chelsea said? Was it something that was like, you know what? Like for me, one of it was the heart attack.
Yeah.
And was the world saying pandemic.
Yeah.
And three was my team losing their job. And four saying, well, you could take this early package if you want, not enough to retire on, but, and then someone saying, your book is really popular, Mark. You always want to become a speaker full time? Yeah. You always want to help more people? So did something, was there one turning point that you can remember?
There's one distinct point that I remember. I can't say that like this was the thing and that I'll always point back to this one thing, but there was a presentation that came through the queue again, I'll say, right? So production creative services is a vast majority of my focus over the past 11 years. So that was everything from how our email signatures look to the commercials we put on TV, plus all of the creative that we did for tens of thousands of small businesses at scale, hence a 240 person team. And, there were a lot of executive level presentations for board meetings and, or for like broader things across charter. And as one of those came across my desk, I remember thinking, I've done got this. I've done this before. This is probably the fourth year in a row I've handled this specific presentation for this specific set of circumstances. And based off of like how dialed in at work I remember immediately thinking how long it was going to take cumulatively over the next 3 or 4 weeks relative to building the base, some of the conversations, the meetings, and like immediately 20 hours or so popped into my head in regards to keystrokes, managing, the team, help with animate, like all of those things. I'm like, okay, this is about a 20-hour project. And then I remember thinking to myself, I've done this before. And there's not that and again, I'm a huge believer that like repetition it's the reason why people go out and dribble the basketball a bazillion times and take all the free throws, and like Kobe and some of the hardest working athletes in the history of sports were known for just incessant, obsession with practicing. And so I always believe that whether for us in the corporate space, it's Excel, it's PowerPoint, they're responding to emails the right way. It's like that's our dribbling, right? And so, but even with all of that in mind, I remember thinking 20 hours, that's a lot of time. Like, but I'd rather focus that on how I could help more broadly with, how to survive corporate America 101, or how to email your boss's boss without like a YouTube series. Like, how would I like to use that time?
Yeah.
And I came back to, I would like to see what I'm capable of doing if I had those 20 hours to do something else. And that was just one of probably 100 different micro influences that kind of led to the broader macro decision of, all right, I gotta grab this, and I gotta responsibly fire myself, because nobody's gonna fire me. No one's gonna come to me and say, hey, here's a package, would you like to walk away? I just gotta literally, cut the cord, but I gotta do it in a way that's smart, and that took almost a full year from soup to nuts. But yeah, that was a big one to think like, what would I like to do with these 20 hours?
And you have the platform. You know that your messages are being well received. 1.1 million followers, and after this, it's maybe 2.1 million followers. Okay, thumbs up. That's going to happen. But the point is that you knew that you had something. This is not about me, but I knew I had a book. I knew that I had stories inside of me that I could now share. So thank you. And again, well done. Tim, looking at your career and looking at what you were doing now, yes, the creative element of your mother influence, and yes, the corporate background and experiences of your father. You are, gentlemen, you're waking up at 4 a.m. still.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting together to-do lists and task lists. You're putting out amazing content. Before you were leading 240 people, you're writing a book. You are doing what most people don't. The question is, why? What drives you?
That's a great question. Little bit of insecurity, a little bit of imposter syndrome, the full understanding that what I've experienced could be helpful to other people if I'm able to explain it the right way. The desire to make my daughter proud of who her dad is, the desire to make my wife proud of who her husband is. Same goes for family and friends. I feel like I've always been so lucky in general for, again, a bazillion reasons. It goes back to the earlier conversation. And how do I make the most of it the next day? Like, how do I truly go back out there and earn my keep? And there were just like a series of events over the course of my life that was like, okay, now I'm fortunate to be here. Now I'm fortunate to be here. Now I'm fortunate to be here. And that could have been, just stumbling backwards into going to school in Canada and meeting the friends that I met up there. That could be just getting my foot in the door for the first time at ABC Sports. That could have been, lucky enough to convince ESPN that even though I had no marketing background, that my live production experience would benefit then from a sales and marketing perspective, because I could bring, smarter ideas to the table relative to, integrated brand opportunities, which now has led to me getting more brand deals, which is funny because I'm like pulling from, experiences that I had 15 years ago. So it's the reason why I get up at 4 a.m. every day is because I can. And I feel good. And that's not going to last forever. Right? I would like for it to last for as long as humanly possible, but I would like to live as though I am 87 and was given an opportunity to go back and like make the most of things. And, as weird as that sounds, it also just makes it like super happy-go-lucky on a day-to-day basis where, it just, I get it. I still think it's an adventure when I get down to the piers, down to the Brooklyn Bridge piers before the sun comes up, and I get to see New York City on the other side of the East River. And I'm like, this is wild. I've seen that hundreds of times. I've literally run like 2,000 miles over the past year, which is more than I've run in my entire life, almost combined. And so it's like, it's a little bit of joy. It's a little bit of wanting to, it's like the constant swirl of two kids grew up across the street from each other. One of them sitting here on a podcast and one of them's not, right? And that's in reference to my friend Jeff, who would have had his 47th birthday 2 days ago. Everything from, watching close family members and friends deal with all kinds of crazy stuff to how in the world did I get picked to have, that last job that I had in the first place, to having a team that believed in me so much that we did all the things that I'm super proud to say that we've done, to why in God's name did a million people click the follow button and decide to give me an opportunity to be a part of their day. Yes. And so I very much feel like I'm now in like a fumbling phase of trying to figure out how this all evolves the right way. And so short term, the best thing that I can do when I don't know the answer to all those other questions is just get my ass up out of bed at 4 a.m., and be super thankful for it.
Yeah, it's so funny, Tim, because I have seen it with your social media postings. There's been a change, of course. It's going from, okay, you knew what you were going to talk to because you had a corporate office to go to, and you knew what salad you were going to get and what protein bar that you were. But now it's different. You are becoming even more vulnerable because now you're doing a coaching class as an example, and it's going to be free as an example. So there's things that you are stumbling through, but that was one reason why I wanted to immediately reach out to you. Are you okay on time for about another 10 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanted to immediately reach out to you because your post on LinkedIn was something about it. It's Thanksgiving morning, WTF that you're reading this. You're either doing what you love or you're with family or something. And I happened to be working and it was 6 a.m. or something shortly after. But I responded back to, I'm doing what I love. And it doesn't matter what time it is. Tim, are you now proud of yourself?
Honestly, the answer is, I don't know. I don't know. I was going to say no, but I don't know.
Okay. I want you to be proud of yourself and just hear me out for a second.
Okay.
You want to hear me out first?
Sure.
I share this story and I am going to send you a t-shirt. And here's the reason why. I was driving last December to Pittsburgh to visit my 89-year-old mother. I was with my wife, my son, our 2 dogs. Our daughter was in Hawaii. And I thought I was happy and content, right? Business is going great. And I'm flipping through the radio station. I come across a comedian named Tom Papa. Very clean comedian, presents all over the country. But he was saying something along the lines of, you're trying to get fit, but once in a while you're going to eat a cookie. Don't worry about it. You're doing fine. But then he shared this statement. He said, by the way, I just want you to know that you're doing great. And Tim, as soon as he said that, it hit me right here. I didn't think that I needed to hear that from a radio station, from a comedian, one-way communication, but it hit me right in my heart and it made me feel good. So I thought, how can I take that feeling and share it with others? So I presented to a group of FBLA, high school students out of Denver, Colorado, 500 kids in the audience. And I said, you know what, let me share this story and let's just try it here. Can you turn to the person next to you, even if you don't know them, look them in the eye and say, you're doing great. And they did that. And I thought this was going to last 30 seconds. Tim, it lasted 4 or 5 minutes. Imagine high school students competing against each other for future business leaders of America, crossing the aisles literally to tell other people from other schools, shake their hand. By the way, I want to know that you're doing great. I know we just competed, but I want you to know you're doing great. Then they call me off the stage. And as I'm handing out gratitude stones to students, they felt like they needed to give me something. So they're like, Mr. Bart, come here. They're giving me sticks of gum from their backpack. They're giving me old Pop-Tarts from their backpack. And they're saying, Mr. Bart, I want you to know that you're doing great. And so just that little simple statement, I am proud of you. Timm Chiusano, you are doing great. You are doing great. You are meant to do this, my friend. You are meant to influence more and more people. You are doing great. I am so proud of what you are doing. Okay? From me to you. Okay? Truthful and honest. I am proud of you. You are doing great. And I see how you're receiving that. And thank you for receiving it. It's important, right? Tell your wife, tell your daughter specifically why they're doing great, but let them know you're doing great.
Yeah.
I want you to be proud of you. And, I'm not well enough to be your dad, but I want you to know as a friend, as a new friend, I am proud of you. You're doing great. So anyway, we had these t-shirts made up that are backwards. It says you're doing great. So when you look at it in the mirror, you can see it the right way. Now, if someone else is walking by, it's backwards, but every time you look in the mirror, I'll get you one. I'll get you one for your whole family too. Look in the mirror. It's just a reminder that you're doing great. Tim, I want to go back to just 2 or 3 more questions. This giving notion, giving. You grew up, you're an only child, right? You were taught that you had to share the rock in Central Park. Where do you think the giving part came from? Because it's very You just mentioned that you're going to be doing this mentoring class and you want to give. You were talking about, leading your team. It always starts with the people first. It's always, you're a stay-at-home dad. You are humble. You don't want to accept credit for yourself, and you are giving, giving, giving. Where do you think that comes from, and how can we learn from that?
I think that also goes back to my parents. I mean, like at the same time, for all the giving pieces too, there's certainly I'm sitting in a absolutely sensational home in Brooklyn, New York. Like there's so much around me that feels like I'm consistently receiving, right? So it's cyclical in that regard. And I think to your question of being proud of myself, regardless of how I may have initially responded to it, I think that there's the acceptance of the abundance, so to speak. And then how do you kind of, turn that around, especially given the limited time that we all have, turn that around to try to share things in the right way. So that's one piece, but that's more like present day and just my own perspective on how do you make that cycle make sense. And it just makes me more comfortable to, order sushi or to, buy a new hat from my friend Max or like, those types of things. The giving makes my head go around. But I think it's, it stems from my parents. My dad was, in particular was extraordinarily generous and the kind of guy that I would learn things from, like, every once in a while, just for the absolute zero reason other than would be a fun thing to do, pay for the person's toll behind you before there were things like Easy Pass. Buy a, my dad still to this day is the guy who has been retired for, I think, 10 plus 12 years now, I want to say. He will go when he knows that the donuts are hot and fresh at the local place that has the best ones, that's even close within the place where he goes to play golf. And he'll go and buy a dozen, 2 dozen just to show up in the morning and be the guy that's like, hey, here's fresh donuts. And to do that on a consistent basis. He's the guy that will, make sure that everybody feels seen. He'll make sure that everybody feels heard. My mom was the person that always had an open door to the house because I was an only child. So that meant that all of my friends had a safe space to go, and not only a safe space to go, but a safe ear to lean into. Your problems, the things that you couldn't talk to your own parents about, the things that you would never want anybody else to know, but you needed help with, especially in the world in which, the internet was not readily accessible. If you had a problem and you didn't know what to do about it and you were a 14-year-old kid and you had another adult that you could go to and be like, you're not going to tell anybody unless you absolutely have to. And so I can go to you and say, I don't know what to do about this. Like my mom was that person. So, all these things just inherently became part of what my own fabric needed to be. And, I love what you said about, you're doing great, because I do try to consistently. My mom also once said something that I will also never forget, which was, you're more important than a number on a piece of paper. And that was in reference to, yet again, not getting great grades as the kid that was like, we think he's smart, but like, he's just kind of a dumbass at the same time too. So we're not 100% sure if it's effort or like what's going on. And so I would get down on myself. I'd be like, I don't understand. Like, I'm well behaved and like I do well and like people like me, but like I just keep getting crap grades. And some of it is without question my own fault. And some of it I just truly don't understand. And she said, you're more important than a number on a piece of paper. So when it comes to doing great and being proud of oneself, I try to consistently reinforce that, especially in my daughter, that, I'm not necessarily, yes, I'm proud of her for grades or for any accomplishment, but more importantly, I'm proud of her because other people see what a good human being she is. And that when people come over to our house and they bring their younger kids, that they're more than comfortable with my daughter watching them. And, so I make sure that I tell her all the time that I'm proud of you for being a kid that other adults really actually like and that they trust and that they will say, nice things about when the kid's not in the room. And so the giving part is just an easy then byproduct of all of that, because if I can spread anything that I've been able to soak up along the way for all of these variety of reasons, then I'm making the most of what I've got in front of me.
And being a good human being and spreading kindness toward others, which is just so important. And also proud of your daughters for being that type of human being, and thankful to your parents for leading you down the path of being grateful and being kind and helping others. Last question I have for you, Tim, and then I want to make sure that individuals can find you appropriately. I do ask our guests to complete the sentence. Most people don't blank.
Most people don't give themselves enough credit for what they're able to accomplish if they really believed in their own capabilities.
Self-confidence, believe in your own capabilities, take a chance. What's the worst that can happen? Don't be stuck. Let that dam flow. Be in control. Choose to play. Choose to have fun. Choose to be happy.
Yeah. Let me say a slightly different way. Most people don't understand that they don't have to be perfect the next day.
Right.
And what I mean by that is all the things that we want to do consistently that become so difficult for a lot of people. There's this nagging feeling, in my opinion, that people will be like, if I'm going to go to the gym, then I'm going to have to go and be so sore and sweaty that it feels like, cool, I went to the gym. When that's not the case, especially if you're just like trying to get your, fitness routine in check, or whatever that, if you just go and you do whatever the next thing is and you do it, 90% imperfectly,
Mm-hmm.
it's still better. So when I say capabilities, and my first answer to the question was almost a little too high level and cliche, where what I'd rather people walk away with is you give yourself enough credit, because you can 1,000% go to the gym. And even if you just went there and looked around and were like, okay, I'm kind of more comfortable with what's on the floor here. So when I come back tomorrow, I know where I'm going to go. But like, this was it. I just wanted to come and like peek in the door today. That's progress. And that's good. And so like, that could be, it doesn't have to be like all the way up here. Like your capabilities for now could be here, or you could be in a day where you only have energy for here. So go and do that and give yourself credit for it.
Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. And I like to say, if the why is important enough, the how becomes easy.
Mm-hmm.
And D stands for do your best. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to make an effort. Do your best. Sometimes you can do great things, but sometimes doing your best is all that's required. Tim, we're getting some amazing comments from the LinkedIn Live. Tim, you're amazing. That last point for me, Tim, I don't have to be perfect the next day. So many incredible nuggets. And thank you for not only being a guest, I'm considering you a new friend now. So whether or not you like it, we're out with it.
I'll take it.
And Tim, I'm going to spell your name just so our followers can find you. Tim is with 2 M's, Timm, Chiusano, Chiusano. If you type him into Google or whatever search browser that you're using, you're going to find him not only on TikTok, on LinkedIn, but he is a person that you need to follow if you want to learn a little bit from his creativity, from his wisdom, from his experience, from his humble opinion. His messages are relevant, meaningful, and so helpful. Tim, cannot thank you enough. Keep on doing what you're doing. I cannot wait to see what you're going to be doing next. I am a massive fan. I am a new friend, and you now have millions and millions of new people. Let's get it to 2.1 million followers on TikTok. Is that a good goal?
As long as what I'm doing, I think what my barometer is, am I delivering enough value where people want to show up for everything that I'm doing? Because then it doesn't matter if it's 10 people that show up, every day, or if it's 2 million. But yeah, I love the goal, and if I do my job, then the right things will happen.
Amazing. I'm going to say thank you, Timm Chiusano. And you know what your title is? Stay at home dad. Not creator, not TikTok influencer, not soon to be author. No, you are Timm Chiusano, stay-at-home dad, great husband, great son, and a good friend. So, Timm, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you could just hold on for 1 second, I'm going to end the stream. We're continuing to get more comments. I think we are all thinking that Timm is now our new best friends in our mind. So, please, if you could stay on for just 1 second. But, Timm, thank you again. And thank you to all of our listeners again.